Now let's begin this one. Chapter 1, Second Chances. Floyd McIntyre had exactly $47 in his wallet when he walked through the gates of Bridgewater Correctional. 3 years, 2 months, and 16 days. That's what a bar fight with the wrong man's nephew cost him. Not that he'd started it. Floyd never did. But when some punk half his age shoved a broken bottle toward his best friend's throat, instinct took over. One punch. That's all it took. Except the kid's skull met the corner of the bar on the way down. And suddenly Floyd was the villain in a story that had nothing to do with self-defense and everything to do with connections. The DA who prosecuted him was young, ambitious, and engaged to the kid's cousin. Open and shut case, they said. Aggravated assault. The judge, a golf buddy of the victim's uncle, threw the book at him. Floyd didn't cry about it. He'd done his time, kept his head down, worked in the prison machine shop, and counted the days until he could see his daughter again. Amelia, 7 years old when he went in, almost 11 now. His little girl, his ex-wife, Michelle Roman, had made sure those years were hell in more ways than one. Supervised visits every 3 months, and only if Michelle felt like driving the 2 hours. Phone calls monitored and limited. Letters screened. Michelle had remarried within a year of his incarceration. Some hotshot named Kyle Randall, who owned a chain of car dealerships across the state. Floyd had seen his picture once. Slick hair, expensive suit, smile like a shark that had just spotted blood in the water. You staying out of trouble this time, McIntyre? The guard at the gate was named Perry Dalton, one of the few decent men in that hellhole. He'd slipped Floyd an extra dinner tray more than once when the cafeteria ran short. Plan to, Perry. Got a daughter to see. Good man. That little girl needs her father. Perry handed him a plastic bag with his belongings. My advice? Don't look back at this place. Not even once. Floyd took the advice. He climbed into the rusted Ford pickup his brother Scott had left in the parking lot and drove toward Millbrook, the suburb where Michelle now lived with her new family. 3 hours on the highway gave him time to think. Time to replay every phone conversation with Amelia where she sounded a little more distant, a little more hollow. Time to remember how she'd stopped calling him Daddy and started using father like he was some stranger in a Victorian novel. He'd called ahead, or tried to. Michelle's number went straight to voicemail every time. So did the house phone. The supervised visitation center told him his file was under review, whatever the hell that meant. So Floyd did what any father would do. He went directly to Millbrook Elementary just as school let out. Chapter 2, Broken Things. The school was one of those modern buildings with too much glass and not enough character, surrounded by perfectly manicured lawns and parking lots full of SUVs that cost more than Floyd had made in 5 years before prison. He parked his brother's beat-up truck between a Tesla and a Mercedes and felt every bit the ex-con in his Goodwill jeans and faded work shirt. Kids streamed out of the main entrance, backpacks bouncing, voices shrill with freedom. Floyd stood by the fence, scanning the crowd for Amelia's face. He'd seen pictures. Michelle had sent exactly 3 in 3 years, each one more formal and posed than the last. Amelia had grown, lost her baby fat, started wearing her dark hair longer, like her mother. There, by the west entrance, walking alone with her head down. She wore a yellow cardigan despite the warm afternoon, and something about the way she held herself, shoulders hunched, eyes on the ground, made Floyd's chest tighten. Amelia, he called out, moving toward the gate. She looked up, and for one heartbreaking moment, joy flashed across her face. Then fear replaced it. She glanced around quickly, then hurried toward him, but not with the enthusiasm he'd imagined during countless sleepless nights in his cell. Daddy, her voice was barely a whisper. You're not supposed to be here. Baby girl, I got out. I wanted to see you first thing. He crouched down to her level, and that's when he saw it, the bruise. Purple-yellow, spreading from her left cheekbone to her jaw, half hidden by carefully arranged hair. Floyd's blood went cold, then hot, then cold again. What happened to your face? Amelia's eyes darted around the emptying schoolyard. A teacher stood near the entrance, watching them. Daddy, please. You have to go. Mom said. Who hit you? Floyd kept his voice level, but his hands were shaking. He shoved them in his pockets. Tears welled in her eyes. I can't. Please, Daddy. Kyle will. She stopped, bit her lip. Kyle did this. Floyd's vision tunneled. The sounds of the schoolyard faded. Michelle's husband hit you? Don't call him that. Amelia whispered fiercely. He makes me call him father. When I said no yesterday, that you were my only father, he got really angry. She touched her cheek gingerly. Mom saw. She didn't do anything. She just took me to my room and told me to think about respect. Floyd had been in prison for 38 months. He'd watched men get stabbed over card games, seen guards break ribs for talking back, learned to swallow rage so bitter it could choke him. But nothing compared to the fury that bloomed in his chest now. Listen to me. He gripped her shoulders gently. You're going to be okay. I promise. But I need you to trust me. Can you do that? She nodded, crying silently now. Good girl. Now, I'm going to take you for ice cream, and we're going to talk. Then I'm going to fix this. All of it. Chapter 3. The phone call. They went to Scoops and Dreams on Main Street, a place that had been there since Floyd was a kid. Amelia ordered mint chocolate chip in a waffle cone, and Floyd got black coffee. They sat in a corner booth where he could watch the door. As she ate, the story came out in fragments. Kyle Randall wasn't just demanding she call him father. He was erasing Floyd from her life systematically. Photos removed from her room. Her birthday cards from prison confiscated. Phone calls monitored and cut short if she mentioned missing her real dad. And when she protested, when she showed any sign of defiance, Kyle had a way of making his displeasure known. A twisted wrist here, a shove there, always where bruises wouldn't show. Until yesterday, when she'd pushed back too hard. He told Mom I was being dramatic. Amelia said, stirring the melting ice cream with her spoon, that I fell during gym class. She believed him, or pretended to. I don't know which is worse. Floyd listened without interrupting. Years in prison had taught him patience, and more importantly, when to observe. Amelia wasn't just hurt, she was terrified. The kind of fear that came from knowing no adult in her life would protect her. What's Kyle do? Floyd asked. I mean, besides the car dealerships. He has meetings a lot, late at night sometimes. Men come to the house, and Mom takes me upstairs. I hear them talking about numbers and deliveries. Once I heard him yelling about someone who wouldn't play ball with distribution. She looked up at him with eyes too old for 11. Daddy, I think he does bad things. Floyd filed that information away. In prison, you learn to recognize patterns. Kyle Randall wasn't just an abusive stepfather. He was into something deeper. Car dealerships were excellent fronts for money laundering. Late-night meetings with talk of distribution that smelled like drugs or stolen goods. Maybe both. Has he ever hurt you worse than this? Floyd gestured to her cheek. She hesitated. Last month, he locked me in the basement for 2 days because I wouldn't delete your letters from my tablet. Mom brought me food, but wouldn't let me out until I apologized to him. Floyd's jaw clenched so hard he thought his teeth might crack. But he kept his voice gentle. Baby, I need you to go back home tonight. Act normal. Can you do that for me? Are you going to hurt him? There was hope in her voice, mixed with fear. I'm going to make sure he never hurts you again. That's all you need to know. He pulled out his phone, the cheap prepaid model his brother had left him, and dialed a number he'd memorized 3 years ago. Antonio Ellison answered on the second ring. Well, the prodigal brother returns. Tony, I need a favor. That's what you said last time, and you ended up in Bridgewater. This is different. This is family. A pause. I'm listening. Floyd kept his eyes on Amelia while he talked. Remember how you said you owed me one for keeping my mouth shut during the trial? I remember. I'm calling it in. I need information on a man named Kyle Randall. Everything. Business, associates, dirty laundry. And I need it fast. This about Amelia? Yeah. Another pause, longer this time. Tony had 3 daughters of his own. Give me 6 hours. I'll text you an address. Floyd hung up and slid the phone across the table to Amelia. This is for emergencies only. My number's already saved in there. If Kyle touches you again, if anything feels wrong, you call me immediately. Hide a phone somewhere he won't find it. Daddy, what are you going to do? He reached across and took her hand. Whatever it takes to bring you home. That night, Floyd met Tony at a warehouse in the industrial district The kind of neighborhood where people minded their business and security cameras had a habit of malfunctioning. Tony was older than Floyd by 5 years, with the same broad shoulders and square jaw, but a harder edge that came from running with a different crowd. He'd been involved in the underground fighting circuit before moving into information brokering, finding dirt on people for the right price. "Your boy Kyle is dirty as they come," Tony said, spreading photographs across the hood of his Impala. "Those car dealerships? Money laundering operation. He moves product, primarily cocaine and prescription pills, using his delivery trucks. Has a distribution network across 3 states. The cops know about him, but he's got a detective in his pocket. Ronald Bailey works out of the Millbrook precinct. Also found out Kyle's got priors, sealed juvenile records for assault and sexual misconduct. Someone's father paid good money to make those disappear." Floyd studied the photographs. Kyle shaking hands with known dealers, stacks of cash being loaded into a dealership office, time-stamped surveillance photos from what looked like a stakeout. "Where'd you get these?" "You don't want to know. But here's the interesting part." Tony pulled out another photo. "Kyle's got a partner. Jeffrey Roberts, goes by Jeff the Ghost. Handles enforcement and collections. Word is, Kyle's been skimming from the supply chain. Jeff suspects but can't prove it yet. When he does," Tony drew a finger across his throat, "these people don't do second chances. How much is Kyle skimming?" "Conservative estimate? $250,000 over the past year." Floyd smiled, but it wasn't a pleasant expression. "Can you get this information to Jeff?" "I could. But why would I?" "Because when Jeff finds out his partner's been stealing from him, he's going to handle it himself. And I won't have to." Tony whistled low. "That's cold, brother. That's justice." Floyd gathered the photographs. "How long will it take? Evidence like this? Delivered to a man like Jeffrey Roberts who already suspects something." Tony checked his watch. 48 hours. Max. Jeff's not the type to wait for confirmation. He'll act first, ask questions later. Make it 24. "Floyd, you sure about this?" "Once I set this in motion." 24 hours, Tony. "And make sure nothing traces back to me or Amelia." Chapter 4. The Longest Night. Floyd dropped Amelia off 3 blocks from her house with strict instructions. Act normal. Stay out of Kyle's way. Keep the phone hidden. He watched her walk toward the oversized Colonial with its 3-car garage and perfect landscaping, and every step she took away from him felt like a knife twisting deeper. He spent that night in a motel on the edge of town, the kind with hourly rates and a manager who didn't ask questions. Sleep didn't come. Instead, he lay on the scratchy comforter and thought about the first time he'd held Amelia. 7 pounds, 3 ounces, born at 4:47 a.m. on a Tuesday. She'd gripped his finger with her entire tiny hand, and Floyd had known in that moment he'd burn the world down for her if he had to. He'd been a good father. Worked construction, never missed a recital or school play, coached her soccer team. But Michelle wanted more. More money, more status, more of everything Floyd couldn't provide on a construction worker's salary. The marriage died slowly, death by 1,000 cuts of resentment and unmet expectations. The divorce was bitter. Michelle got primary custody because she had the better lawyer, and Floyd got weekends and holidays. It wasn't perfect, but it was something. Then came a bar fight, the trial, prison, and Michelle remarried so fast it made Floyd's head spin. Kyle swooped in like a vulture, all charm and money and promises. And Michelle, tired of struggling, took the deal. Sold her daughter's safety for a bigger house and a luxury car. Floyd's phone buzzed at 2 a.m. A text from Tony. Package delivered. Recipient very interested. By dawn, Floyd was parked outside Kyle's main dealership in a borrowed sedan, watching through binoculars. Kyle arrived at 8:30 in a silver Lexus, suit sharp, smile sharper. He moved like a man who owned everything he touched. Floyd watched him glad-hand employees, check inventory, disappear into his office. Normal day, normal routine. Kyle had no idea a storm was coming. The storm arrived at noon. Jeffrey Roberts showed up with 2 men built like refrigerators. They didn't announce themselves, just walked straight into Kyle's office and closed the blinds. 15 minutes later, Kyle emerged pale and sweating, flanked by the 2 enforcers. They drove away in a black Escalade. Floyd followed from a distance. They went to a storage facility on the outskirts of town, one of those places where industrial lots bleed into abandoned farmland. Floyd parked a quarter-mile away and used Tony's binoculars to watch. The argument was visible even from that distance. Kyle gesturing frantically, Jeff standing perfectly still with his arms crossed. Then Jeff nodded to one of his men, and Kyle was shoved into a storage unit. Floyd didn't need to see more. He knew how this ended. Men like Jeffrey Roberts didn't forgive betrayal, especially not when it involved money and reputation. Kyle Randall would be found dead, and the police would investigate it as a drug deal gone wrong. No connection to Floyd. No way to trace it back to Amelia. Exactly as planned. Chapter 5, Aftermath. The call came at 11:47 p.m. Floyd was in his motel room, watching old movies and waiting, when his phone lit up with Michelle's name. He let it ring twice before answering. "What did you do?" she screamed, voice raw with hysteria. "Kyle's dead. The police just left. They found him in some warehouse with his throat cut. This is your fault." Floyd let her rage, saying nothing. In the background, he could hear sirens, voices, chaos. "You were here today," Michelle continued. "You took Amelia. You threatened him." "I never threatened anyone," Floyd said calmly. "I took my daughter for ice cream because I haven't seen her in 3 years. That's what fathers do, Michelle. Don't you dare. Did you know he was hitting her?" Silence. "Answer me. Did you know Kyle was abusing our daughter?" "He wasn't. She's dramatic. She has a bruise the size of my fist on her face, Michelle. He locked her in a basement for 2 days. You saw these things and did nothing. You don't understand." Michelle's voice cracked. "He was good to us. He provided. He was a drug dealer who beat our daughter. And now he's dead. Sounds like karma to me. The police want to talk to you. They know you were in town. They know. Let them talk. I've got nothing to hide. I took Amelia for ice cream and dropped her off at home. After that, I went to my motel. Clerk can confirm I was there all night. Video cameras don't lie, Michelle. You did this somehow. I know you did. What I did was come home to my daughter. What Kyle did, what you let him do, that's on you." Floyd's voice hardened. "I'll be by tomorrow to pick up Amelia. She's coming to stay with me. Like hell she is. You're an ex-con. You think any judge will. I think a judge will be very interested to hear about the abuse, about the bruises, about how you chose your husband over your daughter's safety. I got photos, Michelle, and I've got Amelia's testimony. So here's how this is going to work. You're going to let her come stay with me while you process your grief. Or I'm going to family services with everything, and you'll lose custody permanently." He hung up before she could respond. The next morning, Detective Isaac Atkins showed up at Floyd's motel. He was in his 50s, gray at the temples, with the weary eyes of a man who'd seen too much. He knocked on the door at 7 a.m. sharp. "Floyd McIntyre? That's me. Mind if I ask you a few questions about Kyle Randall?" Floyd let him in, offered him the room's single chair while Floyd sat on the bed. "Happy to help, Detective. Terrible thing, what happened? You knew the victim?" "He married my ex-wife while I was in Bridgewater. Never met him personally. But you were in town yesterday. Picked up your daughter from school." "That's right. First chance I've had to see Amelia since I got out. We went for ice cream, talked for about an hour, then I dropped her back home around 5. Haven't left this motel since except for food." Atkins pulled out a notepad. "Anyone confirm that?" Motel clerk. "Name's Jesse Daniels. I came back around 5:30, ordered pizza at 6, paid cash. He brought it to my door. Been here ever since." "What did you talk about with your daughter?" "Catching up. School. Friends. How she's adjusting to having a stepfather." Floyd met the detective's eyes, though I did notice some bruising on her face. "You might want to ask Michelle about that." Atkins wrote something down. Kyle Randall was murdered between 7 and 9 p.m. Throat cut, execution style. "You know anything about that?" "I know I was here, eating pizza and watching TV. Beyond that." Floyd shrugged. "Can't help you." The detective studied him for a long moment. Floyd kept his expression neutral, the same mask he'd worn for 3 years in prison. Finally, Atkins closed his notebook. "You'll be around if we need to ask more questions?" "Staying with my brother Scott in town. I'll write down the address." After Atkins left, Floyd allowed himself one small smile. The detective was good, thorough, but he was looking in the wrong direction. He was looking for a grief-crazed ex-husband who took revenge. He wasn't looking for a calculated setup that used Kyle's own criminal network against him. Chapter 6. Pieces Falling. The investigation into Kyle Randall's death moved fast. Within 48 hours, the police had connected him to Jeffrey Roberts, identified the drug operation, and labeled it a gang-related execution. The news ran stories about Millbrook's dark underbelly and suburban drug lords. Michelle gave a tearful interview, claiming she'd known nothing about her husband's criminal activities. Floyd watched it all from Scott's living room. Amelia curled up next to him on the couch. She'd come to stay with him without a fight from Michelle, who was too busy playing the grieving widow for the cameras. The bruise on Amelia's face had been photographed by a family services worker, and temporary custody was granted to Floyd pending a full hearing. "Daddy," Amelia said during a commercial break, "did you really not hurt Kyle?" "I didn't touch him, baby. I promise. But you made it happen somehow. I'm not stupid." Floyd put his arm around her. "Sometimes, bad people create their own problems. Kyle made enemies because of the things he did. Those enemies caught up with him. That's not on me. That's on his choices." She was quiet for a moment. "I'm glad he's gone. Does that make me bad?" "No. It makes you human. He hurt you. It's okay to be glad he can't hurt you anymore." "Is Mom going to be okay?" That was harder to answer. Michelle had built her life on Kyle's money and status. Now both were gone, and a life insurance wouldn't pay out for a murder victim involved in criminal activity. The big house, the luxury cars, the country club membership, all of it would evaporate. Michelle would survive, but she'd be back where she started, and that terrified her more than anything. "Your mom will figure it out," Floyd said finally. "But you don't have to worry about that. You're with me now." Scott came home that evening with groceries and news. Ran into Nate Rice at the store. "You remember him? Used to work the construction sites with us." "Sure. What about him?" Said his brother-in-law is a lawyer. Family law specialist. "Heard about your situation and wants to help. Pro bono." Floyd looked up sharply. "Why would he do that?" "Because Nate's daughter was in an abusive foster situation a few years back. System failed her. He's got a soft spot for kids in bad situations." Scott set down the grocery bags. "His name's Mark Solomon. Good reputation. Won a bunch of custody cases against rich ex-spouses. Might be worth a conversation." It was worth more than a conversation. Mark Solomon turned out to be a bulldog in an off-the-rack suit, the kind of lawyer who didn't care about billable hours if the cause was right. He met Floyd at his cramped office above a dry cleaner and listened to the whole story without interrupting. "You've got a solid case," Mark said when Floyd finished. "Documentation of abuse, witness testimony from teachers who noticed changes in Amelia's behavior, and the fact that Michelle chose not to protect her daughter. Add in your stable employment." "About that," Floyd interrupted. "I don't have a job yet. You're starting Monday. My buddy runs a construction company. Already cleared it with him. Pays decent. Hours are regular, and it shows the court you're providing." Mark leaned back in his chair. "Kyle's death actually works in your favor, legally speaking. Michelle's financial situation is about to crater. She can't provide the same lifestyle, and judges care about stability. You've got your brother's place, steady work, and a daughter who clearly wants to be with you. What about my record? You serve your time. Model prisoner, early release for good behavior. And the incident that put you, there was defense of another person. That plays well. Trust me, Floyd. We can win this." Chapter 7. The Web Titans. The custody hearing was set for 3 weeks out, which gave Floyd time to establish himself. He started work at Randall & Sons Construction. Ironic name, considering, rented a small 3-bedroom house in a decent school district and enrolled Amelia in counseling. Every move was calculated to show the court he was serious, stable, and capable. But Michelle wasn't going down without a fight. It started with anonymous calls to Child Protective Services, claiming Floyd was leaving Amelia alone at night and that she was malnourished. CPS investigated, found nothing, and closed the case. Then came the accusations of parental alienation. Michelle claimed Floyd was turning Amelia against her, poisoning their relationship. The court ordered family therapy. She's desperate. Mark explained after the therapy order came through. She knows she's losing. Desperate people do stupid things. The therapist was a woman named Dr. Elisa Carroll, mid-40s, with kind eyes and the patience of a saint. She met with Amelia first, then Floyd, then Michelle. After 3 sessions, she submitted a report to the court that was damning in its clinical language. The child shows clear signs of trauma associated with the stepfather's abuse. The mother exhibits denial and minimization behaviors regarding the abuse. The biological father has established a nurturing, stable environment. Recommendation: primary custody to biological father, supervised visitation with mother pending her completion of parenting classes and individual therapy. Floyd thought that would be the end of it. He was wrong. Antonio called him on a Thursday night, voice tight with urgency. "We got a problem." Floyd stepped outside onto the porch, keeping his voice low. "Talk to me. Remember Detective Bailey? The one in Kyle's pocket. What about him?" "He's been digging. Found out about my connection to Jeffrey Roberts. Put together that I might have been the go-between who delivered the information about Kyle's skimming. He can't prove it, but he's looking hard. If he connects me to you." Floyd's blood went cold. "Can he?" "Not directly. I was careful. But he's interviewing people, asking questions. Your name came up as someone with motive. He's building a theory that you orchestrated Kyle's murder through criminal contacts. Evidence. Nothing solid. But he doesn't need solid to make your life hell. He can drag you in for questioning, imply things to the judge in your custody case, make you look like a suspect. Perception is reality in custody court, Floyd. Floyd thought fast. What's Bailey's angle? Why does he care? Kyle's dead. The case is closed as gang-related. That's the thing. Kyle was paying him $10,000 a month to look the other way. That money's gone now. Bailey's pissed about losing his cash cow, and he's looking for someone to blame. You're convenient. So he wants revenge. Or a payday. Maybe both. Floyd paced the porch, mind racing. Bailey was dirty, which meant he had vulnerabilities. You still have contacts in the department? A few. Why? Because dirty cops don't just take money from one source. If Bailey was on Kyle's payroll, he's probably on someone else's too. I need you to find out who. And I need it before the custody hearing. That's 2 weeks, Floyd. Then you better work fast. Tony was silent for a moment. This is getting messy. It was always going to get messy. Question is, are you with me or not? You know I am. I'll make some calls. Inside, Amelia was doing homework at the kitchen table, Scott was making dinner, and everything looked normal. But Floyd knew normal was an illusion. He'd kicked a hornet's nest, and the hornets were coming for him. He needed to be smarter, faster, and more ruthless than all of them. He needed a backup plan. Chapter 8, Checkmate. Tony came through 5 days before the hearing. He showed up at the construction site during Floyd's lunch break with a manila envelope thick with documentation. Bailey's dirty in 3 directions, Tony said, spreading photos across the hood of Floyd's truck. Kyle was just one source. He's also taking money from a human trafficking ring operating out of the port, protection money. And he's been skimming from evidence lockup, selling confiscated drugs back onto the street through a fence named Phil Mansfield. Floyd studied the photos. Bailey meeting with known criminals, time-stamped bank deposits that didn't match his salary, surveillance footage from the evidence room showing him pocketing prescription pills. How'd you get all this? Like I said, you don't want to know. But here's the beautiful part. Tony pulled out a thumb drive. I've got digital copies of everything, plus audio recordings of Bailey discussing his side businesses. Enough to send him away for 20 years. What's he asking for? Tony looked confused. Boo, whoever gave you this didn't do it for free. What do they want? Tony's expression turned grim. They want Bailey gone. He's been causing problems for multiple organizations. They figured if I'm already digging into him for you, might as well hand over everything and let him burn. Makes their lives easier. So I'd be doing organized crime a favor. You'd be taking down a corrupt cop who's going to ruin your custody case. How you justify it is up to you. Floyd took the envelope. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to take copies of this to the FBI field office in the city. Anonymous tip, untraceable. Let the feds handle Bailey. That'll take time. They'll investigate, build a case. They'll arrest him within 48 hours if they think he's about to run. And we're going to make him think exactly that. Floyd pulled out his phone. I need you to contact Phil Mansfield. Tell him someone's been asking questions about Bailey. Make it sound like the investigation is closing in. Phil will warn Bailey, and Bailey will panic. Panic cops do stupid things. Exactly. He'll try to cover his tracks, move money, destroy evidence. All of which the FBI will catch him doing if they're already watching. Meanwhile, I look squeaky clean because I had nothing to do with it. Tony grinned. You learned some things in prison, didn't you? I learned that the best way to beat a rig system is to let it eat itself. The plan worked better than expected. The FBI received an anonymous tip about Detective Ronald Bailey on Monday. By Tuesday, they'd verified enough of the evidence to obtain warrants. By Wednesday morning, Bailey was in federal custody, charged with corruption, evidence tampering, racketeering, and conspiracy to distribute controlled substances. The news hit the Millbrook Police Department like a bomb. Internal Affairs launched a full investigation. The DA's office started reviewing every case Bailey had touched, and Michelle's lawyers suddenly had a much bigger problem than the custody hearing. His client's dead husband had been working with a corrupt cop, which raised questions about what Michelle might have known. Mark Solomon called Floyd with barely contained glee. Michelle's lawyer just filed a motion to postpone the hearing. They want time to reassess in light of new developments. Translation: they know they're going to lose and want to negotiate. What are they offering? Joint custody with you as primary. Michelle gets weekends and holidays. She drops all accusations against you, and she agrees to supervise visitation until she completes therapy. Floyd looked at Amelia, who was in the backyard with Scott, learning to throw a baseball. She was laughing, actually laughing, for the first time since he'd picked her up from school. Not good enough. I want full custody. She can have supervised visitation once a month until Amelia says she's ready for more. Non-negotiable. Floyd, that's. I said non-negotiable. Michelle had her chance to be a mother. She chose wrong. Now she lives with it. There was a pause. Then Mark said quietly, I'll make the call. Michelle folded the next day. Full custody to Floyd, supervised visitation once monthly, pending Amelia's consent to increase. Michelle also agreed to pay child support. Not much, given her financial situation, but enough to be symbolic. She'd lost everything. Her husband, her lifestyle, her daughter, and any moral high ground she might have claimed. The custody papers were signed on Friday. By Saturday, Floyd had officially enrolled Amelia in her new school. By Sunday, they were painting her bedroom the exact shade of purple she wanted. Daddy, she said that night, as he tucked her in, are we really safe now? Floyd kissed her forehead. We're really safe. Kyle's gone. The bad cop is gone. And I'm never leaving you again. That's a promise. I love you, Daddy. I love you too, baby girl. More than anything in this world. Chapter 9. New Beginnings. 3 months later, Floyd stood in the backyard of their small house, watching Amelia play soccer with kids from her new school. She'd made friends quickly, good kids from good families who actually cared about their children. Her bruises had faded, physically and emotionally, though Dr. Carroll warned the healing process would take time. Michelle kept her once-monthly visits, though Amelia often found excuses to cut them short. The relationship between mother and daughter was broken, maybe irreparably. Floyd didn't push it. Amelia would decide in her own time if forgiveness was possible. Scott had moved in temporarily to help with childcare while Floyd established his career. Turned out Floyd was good at construction management, good enough that Randall and Sons promoted him to foreman after 2 months. The irony wasn't lost on him. Tony stopped by one evening with beer and news. Thought you'd want to know. Jeffrey Roberts took a plea deal. 20 years. He gave up his entire organization in exchange for a reduced sentence. What about the others? Most of Kyle's operation is dismantled. Some guys flipped, some ran, some are fighting charges. It's a mess, but it's over. Floyd took a long drink from his beer. Bailey, federal prison. 30 years, no parole. He'll die in there. Good. They stood in comfortable silence for a while, watching Amelia chase the soccer ball around the yard. Finally, Tony said, You know, when you called me that night, I thought you were going to ask me to kill him. Kyle, thought about it, Floyd admitted. For about 5 seconds. Then I realized murder leaves evidence, bodies, investigations. But letting a man's own sins catch up with him? That's poetry. It was smart. Ruthless but smart. Prison taught me something, Floyd said. Justice and revenge aren't the same thing. Revenge is personal, hot, stupid. Justice is cold, calculated, and permanent. Kyle got what he deserved, and so did Bailey. And I got my daughter back. That's justice. What happens when Amelia asks you about all this someday? When she's older and figures out you had a hand in Kyle's death? Floyd, consider the question. I'll tell her the truth. That I protected her the only way I knew how. That I made sure the man who hurt her could never hurt her again. And that I'd do it all over without hesitation. She can judge me however she wants. At least she'll be alive and safe to do it. Tony clinked his beer bottle against Floyd's. To second chances. To second chances. A year later, Floyd stood in a courtroom for an entirely different reason. Mark Solomon had filed to have Floyd's criminal record expunged. A long shot, but given his exemplary behavior post-release and the circumstances of his original conviction, the judge was willing to consider it. Mr. McIntyre, Judge Tara Phelps said from the bench, I've reviewed your case extensively. The incident that led to your incarceration was, by all accounts, a defense of another person. You've served your sentence, maintained steady employment, and provided a stable home for your daughter. Your record will be expunged. Congratulations on turning your life around. Floyd didn't cry, but it was close. That night, he took Amelia to Scoops and Dreams for ice cream. Same booth, same order, mint chocolate chip in a waffle cone for her, black coffee for him. But this time, there were no bruises, no fear, no desperation. Just a father and daughter enjoying a normal evening. Daddy, Amelia said, next week at school, we have to write about our hero. Can I write about you? Floyd swallowed hard. I'm not a hero, baby. Yes, you are. You saved me. You kept your promise. That makes you a hero. Then I'd be honored. They finished their ice cream and drove home through the quiet streets of Millbrook, past the big houses with their perfect lawns, past the life Floyd and Amelia used to have. They didn't belong to that world anymore, and that was okay. They'd built something better, something honest, something real, something earned. Floyd McIntyre had gone to prison an innocent man defending a friend. He'd come out a father willing to move heaven and earth for his daughter. In between, he learned that the world wasn't fair, but it could be balanced. Sometimes you just had to know where to apply the pressure. As they pulled into their driveway, Amelia said, I'm happy, Daddy. For the first time in a long time, I'm really happy. Floyd looked at his daughter, no longer hiding, no longer afraid, no longer broken, and felt something he hadn't felt in years, peace. Me too, baby girl. Me too. This is where our story comes to an end. Share your thoughts in the comments section. Thanks for your precious time. If you enjoyed this story, then please make sure you subscribe to this channel. That would help me a lot. Click on the video you see on the screen, and I will see you there.